My name is Mr. Dowling, and I am so glad that you can join me for this video. Otherwise, it'll just be me talking to no one, and that would be strange. Anyway, thank you for watching. I have made some videos before about English A, Paper 1, Paper 2. Today, I'm focusing on the IOA. And what I have for you is 5 top tips that I hope will lead you towards English A, IOA success. So let's get this show on the road and let me talk about point number 1, preparation. For English A, you have the luxury to read your text before you actually do the IOA. And not only read the text, but make a decision about which text and which part of those texts you want to talk about. And that is a fantastic advantage for you as a student. Not every student is so lucky. If you do English B, for instance, you don't get to pick the passage as such. You'll be given a random passage on the day. For English A, it's different. You are in the driving seat. You can pick what you want to talk about, and you can frame it in a way that is beneficial to you. So please seize that opportunity. Please seize the opportunity and make sure that you prepare your English A, IOA as thoroughly as possible. How do you do that? Well, obviously, read the text. Then think about your global issues, narrow it down so that you have certain passages, extracts you want to talk about, read them over and over, research them, go on the internet, find out what other people are saying about these things, and then obviously put together your IOA presentation, if you like. A lot of teachers will tell you that the IOA is not an essay and it is not a speech, and they are absolutely right in saying that. However, please take advantage of the opportunity to refine and practice what it is you want to say before the IOA takes place. If I am ever giving a 5-minute speech or something along those lines, what I tend to do is sit down and write out what it is I want to say. And it is almost like an essay, a speech. But then what I do is I look over it and I reduce it down to bullet points. And I try going through the whole thing again, but this time just looking at the bullet points as opposed to the overall prose that I wrote earlier. Once I've done that a few times, I then say, okay, I'm going to leave those bullet points to one side and I see what I can do from memory. And I might not get it word perfect, that's fine. It will hopefully come across a bit more natural, but I'm still getting across the key points that I want to get across. So please go through that kind of process. Please take the opportunity to practice, rehearse what it is you want to say. I think the IB say you're not meant to do that with a teacher, you're not meant to do that with a fellow student, but you can do it with this. Record yourself, listen back to it, and think where you could possibly make improvements. Okay, top tip number 2, structure. Now, for the English A, IOA, a lot of students lose marks because they don't structure their IOA properly. What you need to guarantee is that there is equal balance between 4 things. First of all, you need to spend a certain amount of time talking about your key passage extract from your literary text. So it might be 1 page from a novel, for instance. Then you need to talk about the wider literary work. So if it's a novel, you're talking about other parts of the novel. If it's a poem, you're talking about other poems by the same poet. In addition to all of that, you need to have one text one extract, one something from a body of work that you have studied. So it might be an advertisement, it might be an image, it might be an article. And then you also need to talk about other works produced by that particular author. So it might be that you are talking about one particular Nike commercial, but you need to talk about other Nike commercials too. Essentially then, you need to talk about those 4 things: the literary passage, the literary work, the passage from the body of work, and other aspects of the body of work. And you need to make sure that you're talking about all 4 of those things equally. Now, you could think about this in terms of 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. But bear in mind, you're probably going to have an introduction and you're probably going to have a conclusion. So that means that it's a little less time spent on those 4 things. What I would propose is that you adopt a structure that goes along the lines of 1 minute introduction, 2 minutes about your main literary extract, 2 minutes about the literary work as a whole, 2 minutes about the main passage or text from your body of work, and then 2 minutes about the body of work as a whole, 1 minute conclusion. It's a 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1 structure. You don't need to follow the order that I just laid out for you, but you need to make sure that you are spending an equal amount of time on those 4 components. If you don't do that, you could potentially lose marks for criterion A, because you're showing a lack of knowledge and understanding of certain aspects of what it is you are talking about, and you will definitely lose marks for criterion C, which is all about the focus and the organisation. Obviously, we don't want to lose marks. Right, I am now going to talk about top tip number 3. Top tip number 3 regards authorial choices. This is criterion B in the assessment criteria. Time and time again, students get carried away with summarising the works at their disposal. They maybe offer some opinions. Maybe they get a little bit too obsessed with the global issue and they forget to talk about the smaller details of the work in question. If you make those mistakes, you're not going to score highly for criterion B. If you want to score highly for criterion B, you need to make sure you are talking about authorial choices. So talk about language devices, talk about visual techniques, especially if it's something like an advertisement. Think about the Peel structure that you might have learned in paper 1 or paper 2, point, evidence, explanation, link. You could still verbalise that structure. You could still make a point about the language, provide evidence, explain it, link it back to the global issue. But if you're not conducting that kind of literary analysis, it could be argued that this is not an English A, IOA at all. You need to make sure you're conducting literary analysis of authorial choices in order to prove to the examiner that you know what English A is all about. Okay, now I am going to talk about top tip number 4. Top tip number 4 regards language. The language that you use to deliver your overall message. The quality of your communication. This is criterion D in the assessment criteria. Essentially, to score highly, you need to speak fluently. You also need to make sure that you are avoiding basic mistakes. For instance, lots of students speak in run-on sentences and that is not grammatically correct. You need to show an awareness of grammar, even though it's spoken language. In addition, a lot of students use fillers like, I make this mistake all the time in everyday speech, but if I were doing an IOA or maybe even a job interview, I would try my best to eliminate such mistakes. Lastly, for language, you also need to show the examiner that you can excel. Show the examiner that you can use advanced terms, sophisticated vocabulary. That will certainly impress them. Okay, and finally, top tip number 5. Top tip number 5 regards the questions that you will be asked during the IOA. You'll spend 10 minutes presenting your initial ideas, but at the end of the IOA, your teacher presumably will ask you a series of questions. My biggest piece of advice here is don't worry too much about those questions. Your teacher should be using those questions to clarify any issues that emerged during the course of your presentation. So maybe you conducted a little bit of analysis, but it just felt like it wasn't enough. So your teacher is there as your friend to probe you further and help you perhaps lift up your mark in that respect. The teacher shouldn't be trying to catch you out. I hope not, anyway. So please go in there with a positive attitude. Know that your teacher is on your side and they want you to do well. Those questions that they ask you are probably designed to help you flourish, and maybe they might even be similar to some of the questions that you've discussed with your teacher previously about the works in question. So I don't think you've got anything to be afraid of. If there is a question that completely throws you off guard, do your best to not fall to pieces. Just take a deep breath, maybe ask the examiner if you can just have a second to compose your ideas, and then go ahead and give your answer. Don't worry too much. It would be much worse if you start stressing out and the whole thing crumbles. Okay, so that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are my 5 top tips for the English A IOA. Thank you so much for watching this video. Check out some of my other videos if you haven't done so already. Like and subscribe if you can. But all I want to say is good luck, and yeah, do your best. That's all anyone can ask for. Thank you. Goodbye.